Why Americans just can't agree about President Obama. What's going on? Jack Cafferty's following that in the Cafferty File. Jack.
Well, President Obama did better last night, but he's a long way from sealing the deal for a second term. For example, Mr. Obama is one of the most polarizing presidents this country has ever seen. According to a Gallup poll so far in October, a whopping 90% of Democrats approve of the job President Obama is doing. Only 8% of Republicans agree. That's an 82-point gap in party approval ratings a month before the election, and figures to be the largest gap for any incumbent president in recent history. George W. Bush had an 80-point gap in party approval the October before the election, while Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Ronald Reagan all had gaps below 70. The trend is not President Obama's friend either. Mr. Obama's ratings have become more polarized every year that he's been in office. Perhaps not surprising when he pushed through things like Obamacare with no Republican support. Also controversial are his record government spending and what critics claim is Obama's efforts to grow big government. Gallup points out that it's not unusual for a president's ratings to be the most polarized their fourth year in office, right before the election. For now, George W. Bush's fourth year, still the most polarized of any presidential year since they started keeping records on this back in the 50s. Both Bush and Obama share a near universal approval from their own party and a near universal disapproval from the other side. Another explanation is that feelings about Obama and Bush before him are partly a reflection of our hyper-partisan culture, where every issue degrades into a battle between the left and right. Here's the question. Why is the country so sharply divided when it comes to President Obama? Go to CNN.com/Cafferty File, post a comment on my blog, or go to our post on the Situation Room's Facebook page. Wolf.
All right, Jack, thank you. One of the angriest exchanges in last night's presidential debate came when Mitt Romney questioned the Obama administration's handling and labeling of the deadly attack in Libya. Watch this.
That the president, the day after that happened, flies to Las Vegas for a political fundraiser, then the next day to Colorado for another event, another political event. I think these actions taken by a president and a leader have symbolic significance, and perhaps even a material significance, in that you'd hope that during that time we could call in the people who were actually eyewitnesses. We've read their accounts now about what happened. It was very clear this was not a demonstration. This was an attack by terrorists.
The day after the attack, Governor, I stood in the Rose Garden and I told the American people and the world that we were going to find out exactly what happened, that this was an act of terror, and the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether the Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive. That's not what we do. That's not what I do as president. That's not what I do as commander-in-chief.
Tough words from the president. CNN's intelligence correspondent Suzanne Kelly is here in the Situation Room. Suzanne, you've been digging into this, and walk us through what you're seeing.
Right. Well, Wolf, the governor was really trying to tie 2 different things together last night in this Benghazi exchange. 1, whether the attack in Benghazi was launched by terrorists, and 2, whether it was a planned attack. Now, does it matter? Yes, because those 2 issues are at the very heart of how the aftermath of the Benghazi attack has undoubtedly become an act of politics.
The day after the September 11th attack that killed Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans, the president referred to it as terrorism.
No acts of terror will ever shake the resolve of this great nation.
He did it again that evening.
No act of terror will dim the light of the values that we proudly shine on the rest of the world.
And again the next day at another campaign event.
No act of terror will go unpunished.
As the president said this, the intelligence community was developing an initial working theory that an anti-Muslim film circulating on the internet may have led to a protest in Benghazi, as it had in Cairo, and the attack may have grown out of that protest. But as this was happening, members of Congress were being briefed as well, and some Republicans had very different ideas about what happened.
The attack in Libya appears to be a very coordinated military-style attack. This was not a demonstration gone bad. This was a clear, targeted, planned event.
So the question then was why Ambassador Susan Rice said on September 16th that the attack came from a protest, saying,
"We do not have information at present that leads us to conclude that this was premeditated or pre-planned."
Administration officials said that Rice's comments were based on intelligence they had at the time. As we've since learned, the intelligence community's assessment was changing. We got the first glimpse of that 3 days later. National Counterterrorism Center Director Matt Olson became the first administration official since the president to call the attack terrorism.
They were killed in the course of a terrorist attack on our embassy. What we don't have at this point is specific intelligence that there was a significant advanced planning or coordination for this attack.
Secretary Clinton also used the word terror 2 days later.
What happened in Benghazi was a terrorist attack.
But the president hadn't mentioned the word for several days, not even when directly asked on a September 25th appearance on ABC's The View.
Then I heard Hillary Clinton say that it was an act of terrorism. Is it? What do you say?
Well, we're still doing an investigation. There's no doubt that the kind of weapons that were used, the ongoing assault, that it wasn't just a mob action.
And it wasn't until September 27th that the first administration official, Secretary Panetta, said it had become clear that it was a planned attack. So here's what all this back and forth boils down to. One, whether the president should have said more often in the days after the attack that this was an act of terror. Two, just what does the word planned even mean? Can something be planned 5 minutes before it happens, or does it have to be 5 months? All of the heated back and forth and exchanges over those 2 points, both of which are very open to individual interpretation, both of which help explain just how politics has helped shape this Benghazi conversation, Wolf.
We're going to be learning a lot more on this. A lot of stuff is about to come out, I suspect. Suzanne, yes. Thanks very, very much. We're standing by for a live news conference on what authorities are calling a thwarted bomb plot associated, they say, with Al-Qaeda at New York City's Federal Reserve. We'll have the latest on what's going on. Stay with us. You're in the Situation Room.